Welcome to episode 2 of Simplification Stories. Ollie's back with us to co-host this episode, and today we're joined by the sales director at Nisa, Steve Leach, an old colleague of mine. How are you, Steve?
Yeah, very, very well. Good to catch up with Simon and Oliver again. Good to talk to you.
Yeah, good to be speaking again, Steve.
Definitely. And today our conversation is going to be themed around simplification. So, Steve, let's just jump into some of the simplification stories that you've gone through. I know you've got a particularly interesting experience about a full review of your recruitment strategy. Help set the scene, please.
Yeah, thanks, Oliver. Well, we've been really busy from the Nisa side. Clearly we were acquired by the co-op 3 years ago, and one of the key objectives that we've been leading is a growth agenda for Nisa Retail, and that really led us to do a full review of how we go to market and recruit new retailers to come and join Nisa, which we've been doing over the last 3 years. We've had some real success in terms of stripping back a full review of how we recruit, and we did very well in 2019 with 750 stores that joined us, and then we went into 2020 wanting to really build on that momentum, and of course the pandemic hit, so we had to revise our recruitment strategy twice, if you like, to be even more efficient, but make sure that we were continuing to grow the business, but do it all virtually and online, which really tested us, but again was really successful. And again, we had 650 new stores that joined us last year, which amazingly about a third of those we never met. We did it all online and virtually.
Wow.
Which was a real credit to the team and how we embraced the new technology that we're all stuck working with until we get back out on the road again.
Well, that's a huge win. First up, very well done to you and your team for getting that many new stores to, join the club, so to speak. Help us out. What's changed first and foremost?
So I think how we've gone to market and how we've gone recruiting has really changed. I mean, I've been in Nisa for 7 years, and it used to be quite a traditional cold calling approach to finding new business. But actually, Nisa is very much a relationship business, and it's about being out in the market, and much easier when you're not in a pandemic. But what we've tried to do is put a lot more systems and process in place in terms of who we go and talk to and when. So we've done an awful lot of work with the team. So we've now got a bespoke recruitment team that are full-time working on recruitment, who support the wider retail team, who've got relationships with a lot of existing retailers. And that's really important because our number one lead generator and the main source of all of our new stores is actually existing retailers who have got multiple stores with different symbol groups. So the easiest way to recruit is getting more of our existing retailers to bring more of their stores into Nisa, which is where we've seen some real success. So we've got a different approach from a team perspective. We've got a different way of using data in terms of trying to find where the gaps are in the market, either by location or by format. So we've done some really good work with the local data company and others that have really helped us find out where the markets are and where we traditionally have underinvested in terms of coverage. And then how we sort of review our activity. We've put in a new way of measuring all of our prospects and recruitment, so we can see where we can identify new parts of the system that are where there's any benefit, so that we can try and get stores trading faster or try and get people into the business quicker than we have done before. So there's not been one silver bullet. It's the classic bit of lots of tiny incremental gains that have really helped us become more efficient.
Yeah, I find that really interesting, Steve, because in my mind, I'd assume that people come knocking on your door and say, can I come and join the club, so to speak, as Ollie put it. But actually, I'd never envisaged you actually have to go out and kind of recruit people to come in.
Well, it's an element of both, and you have to work harder than you ever have done because of how competitive the market is and the number of people that are now in the convenience model. and you can't be complacent and wait for people to come to you. You have to go and find them. And I think how you do that around marketing has been a real part of our transformation. That we've again done a number of things. The digital transformation is an interesting point, because we used to have lots of independent websites. That we had a separate Join Nisa website, which was separate to the main corporate website, and now we've got one consolidated website at nisalocally.co.uk, where whether you're an existing partner, a prospect, or a colleague, you get everything that you need from one site. So it just makes the search and the digital journey much easier. We're just about to make it even easier for new retailers to join, that rather than gathering a lot of paper and having to get sort of wet signatures, we're going to move to a more of an electronic version. So that saves time and process within the recruitment process to go even more quick and efficient. So I think it's a balance. And interestingly, cold calling, which is a very old-fashioned way of working, actually can still be very effective, because it's a great way of identifying face-to-face what people are looking for. But interestingly, because of the nature of the convenience industry, we do a lot of our best business at events and networking events, conferences. We've got the National Convenience Show coming up in July this year, which we're very excited about, because it's back. It's the first non-virtual event where we're all face-to-face back at the NEC, with the Association of Convenience Store event, which is always really good, the National Convenience Show, the Forecourt Show. And there will literally be 3 days where we've got a recruitment stand at the centre of the NEC, and we're definitely open for business and looking forward to speaking to as many prospects as we can.
That's brilliant. Well, and I wish you lots of luck, obviously. I'd like to rewind a couple of minutes ago. You described lots of little changes that have led to this overall big step change that you've clearly delivered. How intentional were all of those little changes, Steve? Was it? Did you know what you were going to be doing, or was it almost a feeling away?
Well, I'll have to talk about my favourite example here, because I do get a bit of stick as being Mr. Twitter in the Nisa team, but it's worth talking about social media because it's something that I've been fascinated around personally for a while. But if you have a look at how we've changed the way that we promote the business, we've done an awful lot with social media. There's a colleague that we've got called Gemma Bell, who is absolutely fantastic at supporting us in the social media space. But what I really like about Twitter predominantly is it gives you an instant opportunity to improve and communicate your reach and success stories. About if anybody is thinking about joining Nisa, then you can share testimonials, you can show videos of stores, you can engage with existing Nisa partners who are already on social media, and we've created a bit of an army of advocates, both retailers, colleagues, suppliers. There are a number of hashtags in hashtag Join Nisa and hashtag We Say Nisa, that we've been using for a while. And slowly but surely, we've really got some really great engagement with retailers who've said, you know, I do sometimes get a little bit frustrated because you're always filling up my timeline of what's going on. But actually, there's so much good news, and there's so many things that it's made me lift the phone up or say that I'd like to try and find out a little bit more. And I think that was one where we started off a few years ago playing with that really as a way of trying to do something that is quick and immediate. Now I've got the full team that are on social media, some that are more active than others, but it's a really great way of sharing success and good news, and being able to talk to people and get connections going, because it's quick and immediate. So that was one that has grown a little bit from me being interested in it personally to thinking there's an opportunity to us using really well. But not everything's like that. Sometimes, you know, the best idea that you can get is looking to see what else is happening in the market. and seeing what your competitors are up to. So we're learning a lot from given how competitive the market is. There's a lot we've learned from feedback from our existing retailers and what the rest of the competition are doing to really launch. We've just gone to market with our fresh rewards, a new simpler way of doing business with Nisa, with a new rebate structure. That was based on a lot of feedback that we'd had from existing retailers with Nisa to become easier to do business with. And since we've launched that, we've seen a really good success rate of existing retailers that are signing in, because it's a choice. People are incentivized to join, but not forced. They can stay on the legacy terms. But we've had a really strong commitment of people moving forward to sign up. But it's also generated a lot of interest externally with other people who were fans of Nisa, but were maybe a little bit concerned about the complexity. And now that's been removed. That's really helped increase the number of leads that we've had in the last month as well.
Definitely. Well, that's great to hear. I'd like to actually ask you. So back when I was at Tesco, I was focused on step change and cost saving, and yet then there was the operational team, and it was often often described as almost a poacher and gamekeeper relationship, right? You have, I guess, the hat of both poacher and gamekeeper in here, in terms of you're running the business as usual as well as the change. How has that been for you?
But I'm smiling because we use the poacher turned gamekeeper phrase quite a lot, actually, because it's important in any leadership role, but not more so when you're working with independent retailers. You can see both perspectives within that. From an independent retailer's perspective, my job is to sort of represent their voice in decision making back at the centre. You often talk about who your customer is. It's slightly different for us in that our customers are Nisa partners and retailers, and their customers, the consumers, ultimately, we are slightly indirectly linked to them, whereby the co-ops customers are the co-ops customers who go into their managed estate. So I think the balance between the two is making sure that you keep your feet on the ground and you surround yourself by people who will give you all the feedback, both positive and negative. And one of the things that we've just done, a new feature to build on the momentum for this year with our recruitment, is we've just created a really small induction team, which is a new sort of team for this year, which will guarantee that we get much stronger support into the first 100 days of being a Nisa retailer. And we've got a team of 4 that we've just created. 3 of the 4 are regional managers who have got a lot of experience within the business of supporting partners. But the 4th person is a guy called Adam Viney, who we're delighted joined the team, who was himself a Nisa retailer who ran a very successful and award-winning store at York University, who is just finishing off his induction with Nisa. But that gives us more credibility with the wider Nisa retailers in terms of being able to see things from their perspective, because we've actually hired a very good Nisa retailer to come in and keep us honest, and that will really help, because they will see, the challenge to Adam isn't to go poacher turn gamekeeper, is to keep his partner hat on all the way through and make sure that he challenges the status quo and the process to always make sure that we're thinking partner back.
It sounds like then that there's been a lot of work to kind of select people to be able to join the family, but also then that intensive care period, those first 100 days, to welcome them into the family. So it sounds like that journey's become a lot more supported and a lot more of a framework around it than ever before. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. And from a process and data point of view, we've gone from not really understanding the journey to being able to process map every single step along the way. And we measure key elements of that. So, a really good internal KPI would be when a Nisa retailer signs up to become into the Nisa family, how long does it take from that signature to their first order? That's a really great one, because there's a lot of cash linked to that if we can make that time period as short as possible, so that that highlights where we've needed to do things differently to try and accelerate that. Because once you've made the decision to join, what we've had to do is remove any barriers or processes that get in the way of that. And then we've clearly, with all the sales targets, the sooner we get somebody in and trading, the faster that we can be helping them sort of get the best out of Nisa and really set themselves up for success. So there's a really good way of, and we've had phenomenal support from our finance team to be able to give us the management information and KPIs to try and track that, because that's a really good success story of the last couple of years in terms of how we've used data well to help inform decision making. I don't like, I'm quite I can make a decision really quickly, but I always find it's much easier when you've got data to back it up. So my team will say that I'm often known for having key phrases for everything, but I do like the sort of data insight action piece, that, get the right data, make sure the insight is good, and then put some action in, but then make sure you review that against the assumptions to make sure what you've done is added value. And the induction team's a really good example. That was based on an awful lot of feedback, and actually, interestingly, from my previous role running Vodafone's retail estate, because we did a lot of customer research there that said you were far more likely to renew your mobile phone contract if the first 100 days as a customer were in line or ahead of your expectations. So you can't get further from a mobile phone 24-month contract on a 64 gig iPhone to running a nicer independent store that it trades in the center of Birmingham. But actually, it's exactly the same principle, because if we exceed somebody's expectations in the first 100 days, set them up for success, and deliver against what we said they would get if they join Nisa, it's exactly the same principle. So I'm trying to use some of my industry insight and customer experience from different businesses to apply that into the Nisa model. And so far, it seems to be working. We are measuring the partner sentiment and feedback from the guys that have joined us, and the sales that we've got of the stores supported by the induction managers are significantly higher as a result of that initiative than before. So it's early stages, but it's winning, and there's definitely more to do. But it's a good example of not resting on our laurels when we've had a decent run for the last couple of years, but we know we've got more to do.
That's brilliant. I mean, I love how you're taking the lessons from your previous experience at Vodafone and applying them in. And it's such a critical point around change management, of whether it's a change of joining Nisa, or change of mobile contract, or a change of any other system or process or people change. Actually, that first 100 days mindset is a really strong approach to take. I love that idea in terms of what is it you need to do to be able to gain the commitment of the customers of that change, shall we say, in terms of making sure that they're committed, they don't then back out, they don't revert to old ways of working. It's exactly the same sort of thing. Very strong and powerful lesson there for me, Steve. Thank you very much. I'd like to take a slight pivot in the conversation here, because I know you've also done some really amazing stuff with new formats as well. Do you want to just briefly describe what you've been up to, Steve?
Yeah, sure. So we work really closely with the sales team and the format and development team in Nisa. For a period of time, I had accountability for the team. Not any longer, but the great relationship that we've got with them has really helped. And what we've done there is it's a good story about how we've done things differently. Quite a few years ago, if anybody wanted to move into Nisa and pick up a Nisa fascia, we had a very fixed way of working and a very bespoke set of criteria and a model which was quite inflexible. So around the fit out and the look and feel and the number of things that a retailer had to do to try and get a fascia. And as I worked with Darren May, who's our head of formats, who's got some fantastic skills and experience before he joined the business, he's got a really strong team around him. But one of the things that we did that was different is we quickly worked out that to be flexible and agile, to demonstrate our skill in that area, to try and keep one step ahead of independent retailers, because they're compared to the corporate guys, the independent entrepreneurs are faster and more agile and can make a decision in the morning and implement it in the afternoon. So what we did with the format piece was we became much more flexible, and we did a pick and mix option, so that if somebody wanted to join us, we would give them a lot of expert advice and guidance in terms of use our expertise in terms of category management, look and feel, and how to lay out their store. But rather than be insistent of what that looked like, we could tailor that so that people could choose how much they wanted to do up front, how much they wanted to spend. And having that flexibility with the format team has really helped open up lots more discussions. We are the most flexible symbol group of them all, because within Nisa you can trade under a Nisa fascia, you could trade in a dual branded way, but actually the majority of Nisa retailers that people don't often understand actually don't have any mention of Nisa in their fascia, and they have their own brand and independent fascia which they trade under and we supply. So our flexibility has been a massive change in terms of how we've done that, and continue to do so. But what we've also done is we will regularly review the market and understand where any gaps are. And one of the things that we did last year is we launched Nisa Express, which was a new small store format for stores that were under 1,000 square foot. And so that's our latest format innovation. We've got lots of interest there. We've recruited a really progressive forecourt retailer called Ascona, who are up to, I think, 60 sites now, and they helped trial our very first Nisa Express in a forecourt last year, and we're seeing lots of interest in that, because that gives the flexibility and fresh thinking of our format expertise, but you can apply that into stores of different sizes. So we've done a lot in that space to be flexible. It is very interesting in terms of new areas to try and identify where to generate value. Our latest example of that is we're just rolling out. Co-op have got a very, very good, high quality own brand coffee called Everground, and we're sort of pioneering that, which is a very good quality, high margin product, and that is part of the Co-op own label range, which is available to Co-op stores and into Nisa fascia stores and all independent partners. And we're just sort of rolling that out, and again trialing that in a few sites so that Nisa retailers can see what the benefit is of using that brand.
That makes a lot of sense. I can certainly see how, suddenly the power of Nisa, whether you have the name above the door, so to speak, or not, suddenly opens you up to, well, lots of different opportunities and new ranges. And I know you've been working a huge amount on quality of the different ranges as well. So that's brilliant. Help me out with what's next, I guess, Steve. What's exciting you about how you'll continue to develop the formats, or even the recruitment process as well?
Well, I think the latest space that we're currently working through it's more of a sort of change in the operating model at the moment, which is one of the biggest things that has changed radically is the use of sort of delivered services and partnerships with guys that are changing the convenience model. And we are now working with 4 partners in Deliveroo, Uber Eats, Snappy Shop, and Gist, which are very active in that space. And again, it's the flexibility of the Nisa model. Other competitors are buddied up with one partner, and we're deliberately going slightly differently, where we're working with several, because we don't think that one size fits all, but we'll help you choose who to work with and why. And that's a really good example where our big challenge is given that the pandemic has been such a powerful growth driver for the convenience channel, the question is, how do we help retailers hang on to the additional footfall and momentum so that when hopefully in the next couple of months we go back to a more normal society, that we capture new business and continue to trade that in the convenience channel. So the delivered services is a big opportunity, and we're seeing some phenomenally strong numbers with new footfall and new growth opportunities, which I'm really excited about. So there's definitely lots of work within there. From a recruitment point of view, actually there's a balance there between recruitment and retention, and so it's an equal balance to make sure that we continue to build on the momentum, but that only wins when you retain and hold on to all the retailers that have joined you, so that your net position is bigger than it was. We get a lot of feedback with existing retailers that say, well, you're always in the trade press around how many people have joined the business, but how many people have left. And it's a great question, but we are in a very, very strong net position. There'll always be people who want to leave the group and understand what's out there. But my job is to keep that number as low as possible, and to keep hold on as many people. So we're trying to find the right balance between that. But really, from the recruitment point of view, it's a scale game. So we are seriously in the market looking for some new business of scale with some big relationships and big retailers and big partners. And I've got lots of very interesting projects in the pipeline that we would maybe fill another podcast at another time once it's in the public domain. But,
of course.
But watch this space. I mean, we're about to unveil a number of very exciting initiatives to keep us one step ahead of the market, and we've got lots of interesting projects which we're working on. So it makes for a very interesting time.
And Steve, has the kind of tie up with the co-op changed things, or is that just accelerated and will lift you to the next level?
So yes and yes, it has changed things for the better. A really great example of that would be the co-op property program. So the co-op regularly review and refresh their store portfolio, and at any point where they decide that they want to dispose of a co-op, then we get first refusal in terms of making those available for Nisa partners. So we've got lots of really great locations that might not necessarily be right for the co-op, but we've got some terrific Nisa stores, and that's a really good example whereby if you are a really progressive retailer, so let's talk about Ricky Dougal and his family that trade in the centre of Coventry and Millennium View. They won the store of the year, the convenience industry, for their store in the centre of Coventry. It's a fabulous site. And Ricky's got big ambitions to grow his estate. We were able to connect him in on a co-op disposal site not too far away from his store in Coventry, and he got access to that store as a co-op on Tuesday of a certain week. And on Friday, I visited along with Ken, our CEO, and literally, apart from the final Nisa fascia that hadn't been put up, you could not have found or identified, if you didn't know the story, that it traded as a co-op, because it was a brand new Nisa that he converted in just over 3 days. And that's fantastic, because being able to make those sites available to Nisa colleagues or Nisa retailers and give them first refusal is a really good opportunity that if we weren't part of the wider co-op, we wouldn't enjoy. So there's lots of new opportunities along that angle. We're working really closely with Martin and the new channels team around co-op franchise, and we've had a number of Nisa retailers who've made the move to become a co-op franchise, and we're moving into that space. So there's lots of new opportunities that we can now enjoy that will help our growth ambitions, and just gives us different options to put on the table for somebody who wants to continue and grow their association with Nisa, but give them maybe more channels and options that they wouldn't have had before.
So it's a watch this space type of movement then.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, the challenge when you're doing really well with recruitment, which Chris and my recruitment team will tell you, is you've always got to work harder to stand still. So when you've had as strong a couple of years that we have, the numbers and the sales growth and the recruitment numbers only go north. And so you've got to really stretch yourself with new channels, new propositions, or better processes to keep doing that. But importantly, hold on to all your existing nicer retailers and making sure they're getting as much out of the proposition as they need, so that your net position is equally as strong. But yeah, lots of exciting things coming up.
Good, and it's just sprung to me actually that the 100 days. I knew there was a link. So the American presidents approved to make their biggest impact in the first 100 days of being in office. So your whole recruitment piece about your 100 days intensive care is in good company.
Well, it's an important point, because equally at the same time that we're bringing on lots of nicer retailers, the first 100 days as a colleague is also true, and there's a lot of learnings around that as well. So I've been lucky enough on the back of our success to invest in a lot of top talent into the sales team. We've got quite a large number of people that have joined the sales, retail, recruitment, and central operations team, including I've got a new central operations lead in James Taylor, who's joined the business. And actually, it's a really good point that you've got to make sure that the right balance is true, because the joining experience to join Nisa as a colleague is as important as a retailer. And again, we're trying to do similar elements to make sure that colleagues in their first 100 days are set up for success in the same way. But you're right with the analogy. There's nothing new in retail. It's just where you get your inspiration and ideas from.
Hopefully not Donald Trump.
Well, there's a funny story which ties it all together beautifully, which was when I first joined social media. I was watching Jonathan Ross talking about President of the United States. So my Twitter handle was POTUS OB, because Obama was POTUS, and his Twitter handle was POTUS BO for Barack Obama. So I went for OB, just out of devilment to see what happened next. I was quite terrified because I got a number of followers instantly. One was the White House, one was the FBI. Now you'd think if I was more sensible, I would have changed my Twitter handle. But for the first few years, actually until Obama left, I kept that Twitter handle and was regularly misquoted in quite a lot of quite serious tweets with American press when they transposed the number. My claim to fame is I am still followed on Twitter by Barack Obama, but as soon as Trump came in, I changed it back to First for Retail because I wanted to keep my head down and did not want that power of association. So that's a little bit where you've got to be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, love it.
Well, there we go. So some social media tips in there as well. And what state penitentiary are you calling us from today, Steve?
Yeah, I have to go because I've used my last time, and I need to go and put my protective suit back on.
Well, Steve, it's been it's been a brilliant conversation, and we've dived into lots of different topics. For me, one of the kind of key themes has been momentum throughout, and actually, whether it's continually making a series of momentum changes around the recruitment process, or whether it's about building momentum in those first 100 days, maybe in your Twitter following as well, right? That's been an absolute key piece. And, you said it there, I'm going to misphrase you, I'm afraid, but you have to work harder to stand still. And that's so true. And momentum is only going to help you to continue to work harder, but also move forward as well. So, Steve, thank you so much for joining Simon and for joining myself on this show. Simon, any closing thoughts?
No, I totally agree. Fantastic conversation. I think there's been some quotes very similar recently, isn't there, about if you stand still, everybody else keeps going, so you get left even further behind. So yeah, momentum is absolutely key to keeping ahead of the market or even keeping up with the market.
Thank you so much, Steve.
No, absolute pleasure. Good to talk to you, and look forward to the next one where maybe I could tell you a little bit more about the next bit of momentum we've got planned. But no, appreciate the time. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Steve.